Time to take a look at the power faction of Total War Attila, the Eastern Roman Empire. Starting with generals options, you have basically the same general option that a lot of other factions have. A sturdy general, melee general on foot that is not a good killer, but he is fairly sturdy with a high amount of health and armor. The attacking testudo is going to give him a bonus against infantry, increase the missile block chance substantially, and basically make him impervious to missiles. So the main difference between attacking testudo and defensive testudo is that attacking testudo will increase attack against infantry. It's going to increase missile block by 45%. It's going to increase entity mass by 100%. So attacking testudo, potentially a good thing when you're charged by enemy infantry that has a higher charge bonus than you, and for the Roman infantry that is going to be most enemy infantry, because the Roman infantry overall has a very low charge bonus. For other generals options, we have the Comes and the Magister Militant, very tanky generals options, but they do not have a bonus versus large, so these guys are going to do better against infantry than they're going to do against cavalry. Massive health on these guys. For spear infantry, we have the Comitatense spears, the Limitane bodyguards, the Lanciari Signores, and the Eastern Auxiliary Palatina. Now, in terms of cost efficiency, these Eastern Auxiliary Palatina and Lanciari Signores, they are significantly more tanky than these guys. They're still going to lose to a lot of infantry. The interesting thing about spears in Attila is that a lot of them have expert charge defense, which is going to allow them to do damage to cavalry that charges them if they are braced. So if you activate the defensive testudo and you get hit by cavalry, you're going to get a plus 15 attack against cavalry, double the entity mass, increase the missile blocks chance by 50. So this makes them better able to stand up to enemy charges, but still they're not going to do well against charges by especially heavy enemy cavalry and counterfacts. For Polk Infantry, we have the Menolatoi, and these guys are too expensive to be useful in my opinion. They have a decent amount of armor, but they completely lack shields. So while these guys can hold reasonably well frontally, there are better options for the Eastern Roman Empire than the Menolatoi. The Exploratores and the Preventores are kind of special units in that they have guerrilla deployment, they can move fast through different kinds of terrain. They have rapid advance. The Preventores have the encourageability, but compared to the very tanky Palatina, Protectores Domestici, just not worth it. These units have a ridiculous amount of health for their price, a good amount of armor. They are not good at charging, so again, while using defensive abilities, they can hold for a significant amount of time. We have the Cohorse and the Legio. These are the first units with precursor javelins, and in terms of melee attack, they're actually a step down from the Palatina and the Protectores Domestici, which is a bit weird. Still very good health on these units. Precursor, believe these guys have precursor Plumbata, not javelins, not 100% sure about that. Then we have the Legio Comitatenses, precursor Plumbata. Again, a good amount of health, armor, defensive capabilities, amplified by the defensive testudo. Numeroi and Eastern Armored Legio. So the melee infantry for the Eastern Roman Empire is primarily going to be used to kill enemy spears and to hold for as long as possible while your cavalry does the killing. More about that later. We have the Heterea Guards, very strong axe infantry, also very expensive. They have precursors, good health, a decent amount of armor for being a unit without shields. They will wreck infantry on the charge, but compared to units like Huscarls, they're not as cost effective as they are due to the prohibitive price. Your standard archers are going to have a hard time killing infantry. They can do well against unarmored ballistari and cavalry. Bringing some of these Sagittari for morale debuffs and for piling on the damage against cavalry can be useful. But for the Eastern Roman Empire you really don't need that, because you have such good cavalry that can take care of enemy cavalry. Ballistari, Elite Ballistari are the strongest skirmishers in the game against anything that comes within their range. Using precision and barrage, flaming shot, they can put out a lot of shots per minute, and they can also do 138 missile damage, which will melt units. The prohibitive thing about these units will be their price. Very, very expensive units. And with their speed, they're not going to be easily be able to kite away from enemy, even enemy infantry, especially if the enemy infantry has rapid advance. Funditores will do a lot of damage to unarmored targets with precision shots, can be useful in that role, but very squishy units, basically no armor, they will die to most units. Now if you would put something like 4 Funditores, match them for price against 1 Elite Ballistari, they're going to do reasonably well against unarmored targets, they're going to defeat the Elite Ballistari. It can be nice having 1 or 2 Funditores, but I would not recommend it from a competitive standpoint. Then we have the Levies Armaturae, better at killing cavalry than many of the other skirmishers, still worse than crossbowmen, but can be annoying if these guys get a few volleys off on your cavalry. Now in terms of melee cavalry, all of the melee cavalry of the Eastern Roman Empire is completely overshadowed by the Tagmata. These exhibitores have better armor piercing than the Tagmata, they are better against infantry. But the Tagmata cavalry with a massive melee attack, a 30 bonus versus large, 80 charge bonus, they are the strongest cavalry unit in the game, most caustic cavalry unit in the game, no contest, they will wreck elephants, they will wreck every single cavalry unit in the game. They also wreck infantry on the charge, so the Tagmata cavalry is something that you either love to use or hate to play against. Tagmatas are just ridiculously overpowered at the moment, and they would really need nerf. Contrari, Cataphractari, Klebanari. Again, these units are overshadowed by Tagmata. The only reason why you would want to take these guys over Tagmata would be because they are cheaper. So, or if you have a limitation on how many Tagmata you can bring. So if you can, for example, only bring 6 Tagmata, then bringing 2 Contrari or Cataphractari could be a good choice. The bow cavalry has very nice armor for being a skirmish unit, but it does not have Parthian shots, and with its slow speed, it's going to first have to fire, turn around, turn back again, fire, which makes it almost impossible to kite with this unit against a cavalry unit that has constant attack orders on it. Another thing to keep in mind is that cavalry has the same charge speed, so if even a heavy cavalry unit gets charge speed against the Equites Sagittari, they're probably going to be able to catch them. Then we have arguably the most useless unit in the roster of the Eastern Roman Empire, the Imperial Dromedari. 950 cost, 14 ammunition is great. They have a decent, the scare horses, they have a decent amount of javelins and a decent amount of bonuses versus large. But the lack of Parthian shots means that, and the low speed means that you're not going to be able to use these guys very effectively at all. So in terms of let's see, we can have a look at go into a custom battle and see what the units actually look like in game, because there are some very cool units here. Still, the main strength of the Eastern Roman Empire comes from very cheap tanky infantry and then killing power from Tagmata. That is always going to be the strength of the Eastern Roman Empire, and that is what you usually will see in multiplayer. Tagmata spam has very quickly become the bane of quick battles. They don't really have any good counters, except extreme stupidity by the guy who uses the Tagmatas. So, let's have a look at the units. Here we have the guerrilla deployment units. Scout Equites have guerrilla deployment, very fast. Then we have the Preventores, the Levies Armaturae, the Funditores, slingers, Elite Ballistari, here we have the Armored Sagittari, the standard Sagittari, Equites Sagittari, Palatina, Protectores Domestici, look cool, very tanky. Then we have Cohorse, again very cool looking unit. Numeroi, Eastern Armored Legio,
We will crush the enemy with our greater numbers.
Legio, Legio Comitatenses, my favorite unit of all the Eastern Roman infantry units. Imperial Dromedari, too bad they are useful because camels are cool. Then we have the Cataphractari, again a cool looking unit. Tagmata, these are the best cavalry units in the game. Awesome against infantry, awesome against cavalry. I'm fairly certain they will get nerfed at some points because they are completely ridiculous at this point. Schola Palatinae, cool looking unit, again overshadowed by Tagmata. Equites Dalmatae. And let's see, we have the Menulatoi. Cool looking units, but the lack of shields really hurt them and their price is prohibitive. Klebinari, awesome looking unit. If these guys would get something like 10 or 15 precursor ammo, they would be much more useful. Contrari, good shock cavalry. Exhibitores, infantry killing specialists, but again overshadowed in terms of versatility by the Tagmatas. Equites Promotoi, and the Magister Militant using swords. Very, very deadly against infantry on the charge, which is true for all cavalry units. But since he lacks a bonus against large, then he's going to be vulnerable to enemy cavalry. So in terms of a build that is going to be competitive and effective for the Eastern Roman Empire, let's see, let's turn off, put it on large funds and large armies. The Magister Militant and the Comes are both good options. I would go for the Magister Militant. Then we have, one of the unique things about the Eastern Romans is that they don't really need spears to counter cavalry because they have the best cavalry. So if you have a max of 6 of the same unit, you can bring 6 Tagmata cavalry, for example, and then you can either go with some decent Eastern Armored Legio, 2 Palatina for example, or if you just want holding power and not a lot of killing power from your infantry, you can for example go for something like 6 Protectores, and if you want to go for something really ridiculous, you can go for 6 Protectores, 4 Palatina, because this is going to allow you to tie down basically all enemy infantry, stop your Tagmata from getting attacked by spears, use Palatina to support cavalry fights, and just for fun you can either upgrade your Tagmatas or you can go for some additional skirmishing support. Now, if you want to go a bit more balanced, if you want to be nice to your opponent and pick a balanced build that isn't necessarily the most competitive one, you can for example bring a mix of Legio Comitatenses, Tagmata cavalry, bring some Comitatenses spears, a few Ballistari, a few shock cavalry units, and this isn't going to be the most competitive of Roman builds, but it is going to be a build that is reasonably strong and fun to play with because you rely on combined arms to balance out the shortcomings of the Roman infantry. So again, this can be effective, but it's not really as competitive as just spamming Tagmata and infantry. So that's the Eastern Roman Empire, in my opinion, the strongest faction in the game currently. Strength and honor.